What happens when you are a juggernaut of a company and you start to play copycat of an up and coming brand? What do you think happens? Well, on this episode of the 1004 show, we got Mike Murphy in the house. Well, not necessarily in my house. He's in his house or wherever we recorded this conversation, but he is with a growing company called Success Series. I think you guys are really going to like Success Series. You guys can check them out at successseries.com. But Mike and I met via LinkedIn. The first question I ask him is how we met, but we get into a pretty interesting conversation. I think he and I actually have very similar appreciations for the world, and we love a lot of the same things. So you guys are going to like this. But a couple of things that we talk about in this episode: what happens when a big business tries to copycat an up and coming business, how to use a chip, how let me speak in English, why using a chip on a shoulder can help you get results. Creating catchy content is what you want, but not clickbait, because clickbait is terrible. As Charles Berkeley would say, it's terrible. And success is addicting. Mike Murphy, Success Stories. Are y'all ready for this? Let's go! So, Mike, how did you first learn about me?
Well, I was on LinkedIn one day and I saw this video that you did where you're in a suit and tie and it started off you're saying, you were talking about being an anomaly. He says, you say, you know what, forget the suit, get the suit off me, get this shirt off me. And you're in a black shirt like you are right now. And you start talking about being an anomaly and standing out. And it really resonated with me because of the fact, I've been to these corporate events. I've seen people in the regular blue or black suit with the red tie, red power tie, looking very presidential and whatnot. You don't stand out. You don't stand out at all. And I think that's what really resonated with me was the idea of standing out and giving yourself ways to stand out. And that's what really got me excited to learn more about you and to learn more about your book as well.
Yeah, I think it's so important because everyone has something special that they want people to see, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to start with this just because I think it's interesting that it worked, right? So, and people think that, well, I'm not different from a physical standpoint. Well, to me, like, being an anomaly doesn't have to necessarily just be physical. It could be so many different ways. It could be just having amazing customer service. So, like with Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A was one of the things that we showed in the video, like, while their food is good for a fast food standpoint, I believe their anomaly is their customer service.
Yes, absolutely.
You go to McDonald's, you have a terrible experience. You go to Chick-fil-A, even if you have to wait an hour-long line, because sometimes that happens, you're okay with it. Because at the end of the day, when you say thank you, they say, my pleasure. And they're super excited. So how do you stand out? What does Mike Murphy do to be the anomaly?
Well, I'm still kind of figuring that out. Each and every day, I figure out ways to stand out. I think and everyone, it's funny because everyone says, oh, the whole, I have ambition and things of that nature. But I think if you know who I am, you know that my ambition is what makes me who I am. And I think that's something that my friends, colleagues, people I've done business with in the past will say. It's the ambition, it's the hustle, it's the drive, it's the determination that stands me apart. But, I'm still trying to figure out what really makes me stand apart in terms of, between myself and, the next guy. And I think, yeah, I'm still figuring that out. And I think it's my outlook, my philosophy on life. See, I read this book before I went to school, which I just graduated from, last year, less than a year ago. And it's called The Slight Edge. And what it is it's, a compound interest. It's doing the little things every single day and believing that those little things, once they add up, will become something greater. And people will say, oh, you're an overnight success. No, 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 no. You're not an overnight success. You are the product of little practices every single day, positive practices every single day. So you could do a negative thing every single day and it'll add up, and you'll find yourself in a hole, and you'll say, how did I get here? Well, it's the little things that you do every single day. But if you find yourself at the top, people will say, how do you get there? It's just the little things that you do every single day. They're baby steps. Like if I eat a cheeseburger from McDonald's today, I'm not going to be obese, you know.
But
But
if you do it every day,
if I do it every day, 5 days a week, 365 days in a year, then I'm going to have a problem. But if I eat a salad 5 days a week, then I will be healthy. So that sort of thing. Like at first, that salad's not going to do anything for you, but compounded over time, then the compound interest kicks in, and then you become healthy,
yeah, that's
or,
really,
or get your goal that you want to achieve.
yeah, I think it's really important. I often say that to me, the internet is compound interest, right? So the best time to start was yesterday, right?
Right.
And so we learned in school growing up that put money in the bank and, it'll be more today, or it'll be more today than it was yesterday, because that's just the way that works. And the internet is the exact same thing. Your network, your brand is the exact same thing. And that's something that we talk about in the book, where it's like, hey, like, I understand that you might be uncomfortable doing this, but this is what makes you be seen. And people, I often hear that I often get the question like, Zach, how do we see you all the time? And I'm like, I'm just doing the exact same thing over and over again, and so more and more people are going to see me. And so actually this morning when I was at 7-Eleven, this lady stopped me and she was like, hi, I see you all the time. I just wanted to stop and say hi. I'm kind of starstruck. I see, because I also host a TV show on ABC. And she was like, oh, I just wanted to say hi. And I was like, well, you don't need to be nervous. Like, I'm just like you. Like, we're both getting coffee. Like, it's fine. But like, you get seen by doing the same thing over and over again, because that's just what happens. More and more people will eventually see you. And she's like, oh, you work at the local, or she works at the local grocery store. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And she's like, well, you're always in there, because I got to get food. And just because someone doesn't come up to you doesn't mean that they're not seeing you, right? Not everyone is proactive in that sense. And so that's another thing, is there's this thing where you never know what is going on, even though people are consuming what you're doing. And so, that compound interest is so important. So the Slight Edge, who's the author of that?
I forget the author's name.
All right, I'll look it up.
Yeah.
But they talk about compound interest.
They talk about compound interest, and it's a bunch of other things too. It's like the 95. It's like a curve, sort of, and the curve up is the 5% of the people that will do the little things. That's why you have that top 1%, and there's 95% of the people who will do the little things that are negative, that will lead to a negative effect. And I knew, looking at that curve, I said, I want to be part of that 5% that goes up. And I know it's accepting the fact that it's going to take time. It's accepting the fact that when you put yourself out there, it's not just one time, it's many times. Like you said, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but Gary Vaynerchuk is a guy who I look up to, and I see he's always about putting out content, and always putting out numerous amounts of content. And I think that's something that me and you can both, get behind, is you got to put out tons of content about not only yourself, but about your business and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I also think, to kind of hit that point too, where you're familiar with the bell curve, where there's early adopters and not. And so oftentimes people have found the right target customer, but they haven't found that target customer on the bell curve, in the right place in the bell curve. And so if you guys are watching this or thinking of a bell curve, so it's a series of like super early adopters, then on the fence adopters, then it goes over the fence, and then like the third quadrant is like, or it goes over the hill. The third quadrant is like those people who were kind of on the fence but really probably would never do it, and the people who will never become customers, even though they might look like your target customer. And that's something that when I consult with a lot of businesses, I'm like, hey, where are these people here? And because they find the target customer, someone that went to, where'd you go to school?
Westchester.
Okay, so someone that went to Westchester, is in the 20s, likes the Phillies, likes Philadelphia, and is a white male, right? So they check. Everything's checked. But if you, from a bell curve standpoint, are in that kind of third part, they're not going to convince you. And so that's why you have to create all that content and awareness, because then at some point, hopefully, they slide over through time.
Exactly.
So you went to school. What'd you go to school for?
Went for communication studies, which would basically be broadcasting, journalism, things like that. I got a minor in journalism as well
Cool.
while I was there.
I have a
And I did.
journalism degree.
I was gonna say I did 5 internships while in school during those 4 years as well. I think that's one of my claims to fame. My personal claims to fame is being able to complete 5 internships in a 4-year span while I was there. So pretty fun.
When you started school, were you going there for common journalism?
Yes, yes,
And
that was the main.
and after 5 years or 4 years and 5 internships, do you still want to be in that industry?
I'm still in the industry, sort of. I do public relations and I do content creation. So technically, I'm still sort of in the industry. I do some reporting for our site, successseries.com, which is, we can get into that a little bit, but we have a blog on there. So a lot of the things that I did, help me out with that stuff. But I would say no, because first off, the content creation for, whether it be SB Nation or something like that, those websites, the money isn't there anymore for writers and for journalists, and that's what I originally went for, was to be a writer and a journalist, and then TV was the second goal, which I was going to achieve, but then I realized the money wasn't there either. See, I knew my skills were good enough to be in that industry, but I also know that I have additional skills that will help me, in business and in marketing and in public relations and things of that nature. So I started searching for stuff like that as well. And luckily I found a really cool opportunity with both Success Series and Instant Sponsor.
Did you, while in school, so I did not do an internship. I have a journalism degree just like you do, or similar degrees, I guess.
Right.
I did not do an internship. And I think that if I would, and this is something that I don't think it's a mistake necessarily, but it's a learning lesson, I would have done one now, and I would have learned that medium I didn't like. I like
Right.
telling people stories, just not in the news kind of way. So, and I also didn't know that the money was so crappy.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know if it's misleading. I don't know if it's just something you got to figure out. But it was not made clear to me that I would start getting offers between $17,000 and $27,000 outside of school. And I just thought that was wrong. And so maybe that's me just being naive. And this is '07, so the internet is there, right? I'm not that old. But that's not a lot of money. And so if you're going in 70, 80, 90, $100,000 of debt, and I don't know how much you have in debt or how much school was, but that just seems like it's going to take a really long time to pay off. And so,
yeah, a friend of mine was in the industry and kind of warned me. I think it was my sophomore year. He started to warn me about the dangers of the money in the industry. I think he was getting 26 or something, a little bit slightly less than that. And he was, cutting his teeth with a local newspaper that I did my first internship with. And he was telling me all about it. He said, listen, if I could advise you, look other places to use your skills and to use these abilities that you've conjured up.
I think that's interesting, right? So I think we both have a similar skill set where we thought that this was the world that we had to be in. And now we're recognizing that, hey, this skill set is still there. It just isn't on the medium that I originally thought it was. So what is Success Series?
So Success Series, it's actually blew my mind the first time I saw it. It's a coaching platform that offers 2D, which is just regular lessons, and virtual reality lessons with world-class athletes. So right now we have Ricky Fowler as our brand ambassador, who is a PGA Tour megastar. I mean, he's sponsored by Puma Cobra. He's, a multiple PGA Tour winner. He's finished top 5 in majors. I mean, and he's on the cusp of probably hopefully winning one this year. But his lesson, and what separates us from the other companies that do these lessons, is the fact that we don't script anything. We tell Ricky, hey, go out there and tell us about, how to hit a better drive, or how do you putt better? And he'll just go right off the cuff and start telling you how to putt better. It's not scripted, nothing like that. And I think that's what separates us from the other guys in the industry, is the fact that you were literally getting coached by a PGA Tour player ranked 7th in the world. And it's not an old guy teaching you. It's not some semi-pro teaching you at a driving range. It's the actual guy himself. And I think that's the coolest thing about it.
Totally agree. Obviously, this show is unscripted. I think that's important. I
Right.
obviously do a little bit of research beforehand and figure out who Mike Murphy is or whoever my guests are. But, and it's interesting, a lot of guests are like, I want to know the questions before. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to give you the questions because I don't know where the conversation's going to go, right? My first question with you was not going to be the first question I asked. But as we were doing some pre-talking, it realized that was going to be something that to get and pull people in. And so I think a go with the flow, I think it also shows, or go with the flow is good, but then I think it also shows that like, you are not saying the same thing to everyone every time. And so many shows, it's the exact same thing over and over and over again. And that non-scripted thing is something I think I'm good at. So one thing that I've seen before, maybe it was scripted, maybe it wasn't, but on, I believe it was MLB Network or Fox Network with baseball, it was Pete Rose teaching Frank Hurt and A-Rod how to get out of a slump. Have you seen this video?
Yes, I have. I've actually watched it numerous times.
Dude, it's amazing. And so it doesn't. Yeah. What's amazing about it is these are three of the greatest sluggers of all time, right? And they are getting, and two of them are really successful in Frank Hurt and A-Rod, and Pete Rose might be the greatest of all time. But they are literally looking up to this guy saying, here is how I can teach you and coach you out of this thing. And baseball fan or not, it was just really interesting and it was really good content to watch. Just like, wow, all he said was move up a little, move back a little, choke up a little, choke back a little. I mean, really compelling stuff. And I was like, wow, like you could tell it was genuine too, where they were watching there going, wow, like I don't know why I never did that. Like maybe I could have had more hits.
It's also funny too because A-Rod and Frank Thomas are both, they both, what's it called? They're both retired at this point too, I'm pretty sure, or at least A-Rod's on the back end of his career, and they're still in awe of Pete Rose. And I think that you're right. It's the coolest thing ever to see Pete Rose teaching those two guys, future Hall of Famers probably, or at least Hall of Fame credentials, to learn the game. And I think Ricky is the same way with people. I think that's the novelty of having Ricky on Success Series and the tons of more athletes that we're going to try to recruit and bring on to teach in Success Series. And I think and the other thing is too, if you want to dive a little deeper into it, Success Series, when you view this virtual reality lesson, you're able to pivot and look at Ricky's swing from different angles. And I think as a student of the game for baseball and for golf, that's one of the things that I always wanted to do was study different angles of people's swings and, really take it in a firsthand view. And you only get a couple angles when you watch them on TV. So to be able to watch every single angle of Ricky's swing, whether it's a drive, a putt, a chip, or anything like that, it makes it all more worth the while. And the funny thing is we only charge $5 to $7 per lesson. So that's also what makes it's both affordable and it's not cheap by any means. It's affordable and it's quality lessons taught by one of the best golfers.
It's cheap in price. It's not cheap in content and quality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I said Frank Hurt. It was Frank Thomas. I don't know who's Frank Hurt. The Big Hurt. Yeah.
They called him the Big Hurt. Yeah.
Frank, I'm sorry if you're watching this. I think that's what's really interesting is this VR, AR, what do you guys call it? MR?
We call it VR. Okay. But it's virtual reality, yeah, VR, and then we have 2D, which is basically if you watched it like on YouTube. We actually just signed a deal with Lenovo to stream all of our lessons through their through their streaming system, which is cool.
I think the whole virtual reality world is interesting. And I never really understood it. I also always get sick when I put on the goggles. But that's just me. But what's interesting is the fake stuff I don't care about. But the legit training, like your product, or the first time there was a manufacturing company or a training company for people that would pick up big shipping containers and move it to different places. And they would put you on the lot of where these things were and basically put you in the cabin. And so you have these two joysticks and then you put on the goggles and you literally would do the moves and you could turn around and see all the way over here, turn over here. I mean, it was the first time I was like, training is where this is going to work and be a huge thing. And so it's interesting that that's what you guys are doing. How did you get it?
I was going to just say, too, when you get sick, too, let me ask you this. Is it because you're watching a ball or watching something move from side to side?
I think it's because I'm watching some sort of non-real thing.
Okay. Because
Right.
I know a lot of people when they watch, like the NBA's tried this where you have to track the ball at the game when you put on virtual reality goggles, and it doesn't see that's the difference between us and them too, is you're not tracking any ball either. You're getting coached by someone. And it's similar to the example that you just gave. But when you're trying to track a ball, whether it be a PGA Tour event or a basketball game, football game, baseball game, the technology's not there for that to to be used yet. I think it's more or less that and I think that's what turns people off, is that they're trying to track this ball and they get frustrated because it's not a good quality. But when they see our product, they say, "Whoa!" Like they're blown away. We had little kids try on the goggles down in San Diego, and they were like, "I've never seen anything like this in my entire life." And that's the reaction we get, and we live for that reaction, because it's not just going to be Ricky. It's going to be basketball stars and baseball stars and football stars who are going to teach these kids and adults, lessons in virtual reality.
Yeah, I love it. So how'd you get Ricky?
Our CEO, Anthony Ponziniero, who I wish could join us today, but because he would be also a dynamo to have on the show as well. But he actually had really good ties with the PGA Tour. It's funny, he has a pretty compelling story himself. He grew up in Sydney, Australia, started his own company at 22, sold it for millions of dollars by age 30, came over here, started working on a project with Instant Sponsor, the company that he founded, and then had some really good ties with the PGA Tour and was able to sign Ricky to be our brand ambassador with Success Series. So that's how he got Ricky in the short form.
That's cool. Always having those relationships, and then when you have value to offer them at a later time, give them that offer. I think all too often people are trying to do, they just show it, like someone would just show up and be like, "Yo, Ricky, I want you to do this thing," and Ricky's like, "Dude, I don't know you. I don't have a relationship with you." And so by building that relationship, years later you can get something out of it, and I think that's important. So that reaction that you get from the kids or from a client or from anyone that's actually learning from you guys, how do you then take that content and then use it to leverage and sell more courses?
Well, the funny thing is, so what I've been doing with Success Series is I've been booking us on local television stations at tournaments, and this just so happened to be one of those TV stations. You actually can view it on Fox 5 San Diego. You can also view it on our website, or no, I'm sorry, on our YouTube page, because we have the video clip from the YouTube page. And one of the kids that we interviewed with Fox 5 San Diego said these exact words, and it really blew us away. He said, "I've seen virtual reality before, but I've never seen anything like this." And me and the CEO look at each other and we're like, "Oh, that's awesome." So that was, stuff like that. So we're actually heading down to the Arnold Palmer Invitational in 2 weeks to talk to a new station down there, probably interview Ricky, and we're just going to keep that ball rolling in terms of PR and in terms of marketing as well.
What I love about Ricky Fowler is his anomaly. While he's amazing at the sport of golf, would you say 7th in the world? I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But his clothing is so unique that it makes him stand out. And I remember that was the first thing I ever noticed, because he had like orange clothes or something. I was like, "Oh, I like this guy," because golf has been such a stiff old guy's sport, if you will, where everyone kind of like looks the same, and he looked different. And then there was Payne Stewart dressed a little different, and who was the really large guy that could hit?
John Daly. Yeah,
John Daly. Like, those guys are anomalies in the way that they dress or hit, and I appreciate that. And so it was cool to see that Ricky Fowler was on the homepage there. So what's the website for Success Series?
It's just successseries.com.
There you go. This is episode 105 with Mike Murphy of Success Series. You talked about your outlook and ambition on life. Tell me a little bit more about that.
My outlook and ambition. Well, I mean, I'll be clear with you. I was bullied a lot when I was younger. And there was a lot of, I was actually very chubby. I was actually, fat at one point, and I didn't like that at all. And I knew it kind of gives me this small chip on my shoulder to go out there and prove a lot of people wrong. It's funny. 2 years ago, I was on Twitter, I was looking up my nickname, which is Mad Dog, because that came from having a bad temper from being fat and whatnot. And that actually stuck with me from 4th grade all the way up until now. But anyway, back to the point, I saw some tweets that, how the celebrities read those mean tweets sometimes. Well, I had some mean tweets about me, and they were actually very harsh. and I didn't see them until about 2 years later from high school, and I saw them while I was in college, and that kind of gave me a little bit more motivation too to prove some people wrong. So I think part of my motivation is to do it for me, and part of my motivation is to show people you didn't beat me down, you didn't get the best of me. And I think that's something that I want to tell people someday is, no matter who, no matter who disrespects you, no matter who puts you down, don't let them put you down to the point where you can't fight back. And you don't have to fight back with, words at the time. And you don't have to fight back in that time zone. If you fight back with your actions and with your ambition and your hustle, they'll look back and say, wow, I made a huge mistake, hurting that guy, because, he's going to be something great. And I think that's something that I want to do, is make sure that people know you didn't get the best of me. And I think that's something important.
Love it. I also think that as you get successful or you start to be seen more, people will bully you again. People will be haters. Yep. People will be evil towards you. And so I was talking to a friend probably a couple days ago, and he was like, do you think you have haters? And I was like, I know I have haters. And my response is like, I respect their opinions. I respect that they have issues, but I can't worry about them right now. Like, it's the same kind of thing for competitors. Like, sure, everyone has a competitor, but if I'm worrying about them instead of my customers, the people that are looking for me, I'm doing those customers a disservice. And yep. I'm building something towards what that competition is doing, not what my customers are looking for. And so I think people get so tied up in the, what's your competition doing? Or what is your hater doing? Who cares? Like, it's a waste of time. So when you got those tweets, what did you do?
I sat there and I pondered them for a little bit, and I thought, well, and I came so far too. This was about 3 years into my college career, and I thought to myself, wow, I've done so many great things so far, and this just gave me more motivation to go out there and prove them wrong. And like you said, like, you're gonna have haters, but what the other thing is too is it makes you tougher. It makes you very tough even when you go through bullying. If it's face to face or online, it makes you tougher in the long run. It makes you able to withstand periods of failure or adversity. And I think that's something that might be my anomaly right there, is the ability to withstand adversity and the ability to see adversity not as what it is what people think is failure, but I see it more as a learning opportunity and an opportunity to grow from that. And I think that's what some people, when they get beat down and they're bullied, they see this adversity as something that's going to keep them down, instead of fighting back and making themselves better and making themselves just better than the other guy.
I love that. The ability to withstand adversity. I think people that bully or people that are negative, they probably just want the attention. They probably just want to be seen too. And so they're going through something. And I always tell people, like, if you catch someone on a bad day and you don't really know them, like, give them the benefit of the doubt, because you never know what's going on, right? Someone could have just passed in their family. Money could be tight. Maybe they're going through a breakup. Who knows? It could be anything, right? And so it can be tough. So I appreciate that. What is Mike Murphy the best in the world at?
Nothing yet. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I say I would like to be the best in the world at anything I put my mind to. And I think what I'm putting my mind to is being an entrepreneur, being a writer, being a public relations man, being a marketer. So all those things. I would like to be the best in the world at those things, but I realize now I'm not. And that's what the goal is. And even if you get to a point where you think you're the best, you're still not the best yet. And I think that's something that keeps guys like you going, guys like me going, is we know we'll never achieve that best in the world goal. There's still time to work. There's still someone always in front of you. And I think that's what, the ambition that keeps us both going.
Or someone trying to catch you.
Yes. And someone's right behind you, and you got to stay ahead.
Exactly. I think it's easy to get to the top. I think it's insanely difficult to stay on the top. And the example I'll give you is, a lot of people have won championships, or a lot of people have had a great game. But to have a season of that, or a series of seasons of that, is very, very difficult. So when they talk about dynasties or the greatest of all time, those are the things that I want to be. Right? I want to be known as the GOAT. I want to be like Tom Brady, or I don't know, The Rock in wrestling or something like that. And so
to be that person, to be the GOAT, you're not winning once. You're winning a lot for a long time. And I think that people get excited about that one championship or that one win, and I'm like, that's not enough for me. Like, I want to be the greatest for a long time. So
Success is addicting. It's addicting. It's a feeling. It's a high that you just want to keep on going. You want to keep on going back to it every time. And I'll leave you with this point. Every time that I do something really good, like whether it was, going on TV for the first time, or, closing a deal at Success Series, or doing something, or getting us on TV at Fox 5 San Diego. Every time I did that, I wanted to do it more. I wanted to go out and find the next opportunity. And I think that's what what you're trying to say is the success is addicting.
Love it. Tell me about the content game.
The content game for Success Series,
or just in general. So you said like you think content is important. Like I think everyone's saying that content's important now. Like, what are your thoughts on content? How do you get it out?
It's definitely shifting. I would say the market for content is shifting. The way that we produce content is shifting. Whereas, people are reading tweets now, and people are reading, 140 characters or so, or whatever it is now for Twitter. It's 280, 160, whatever it is. It's small. So I think the way you go about making content is not just long videos, but short videos as well. Short videos that get your content out there, get your message across. Short blog posts that get your message across. I had a friend of mine, Teron Davenport, who writes for the Eagles Wire with USA Today, and I was writing for him as well when I got out of school in like a glorified internship outside of school. And what we did is the specialty for that blog, for that news wire, was writing posts that were about 300 to 400 words maximum. And what they did was they got the quote in there, they told the story, but you were able to tell the story effectively in 400 words or less. And I think that's what made that blog successful, was because people went there, they got the content real quick, and then boom, they're done. They're on to the next one. And I think that's what you have to do, is you have to produce content not quickly, but efficiently and short enough that people are able to consume it quickly and then move on to the next piece of content that you or someone else provides.
So not just from the content game of producing it, and I get what you just said, but then how do you then become the distribution of that? How do you get your content actually seen?
I think you just have to make it intriguing enough. I think it's, not just the catchy headlines, but I think the content has to, reach a wide audience and resonate with them. Coming up with different sort of, not just, I wouldn't say like different pieces of content. Like some content people are going to be interested in. I'll give you an example. With Success Series, I do some content is, for betting on PGA Tour events, and some content is about Ricky's life, and some content, I did one yesterday about obscure PGA Tour memorabilia, things of that nature. Getting out to different audiences and resonating with different people is what's going to make your content stand out, not just to one group of people, but to several groups of people. I think people need to recognize that you can't give them the old news story, the old format news story. It doesn't work that way anymore. People want opinion. People want, edgy content. People want not just their news anymore, but they want some opinion about it as well. I think that's what makes Barstool Sports really profitable and really successful. It's not, they give you news, but they also interject their own opinion into it. And sometimes it's edgy, sometimes, most of the time it's funny, so things like that. I think they have a formula to success over there. And I think that's something that people should sort of try to emulate, and not necessarily copy, but emulate their success and emulate the formula that they use to get their content out there.
That's interesting. Okay. So, I'm writing notes on this. So
no worries.
I went to school with Pat McAfee, who is and he is as crazy in school as he is on the show. Actually, he's probably crazier. Have you seen his comedy show or his?
I haven't seen his comedy show, but I've seen him on Barstool though, and he's a riot.
He's great. So I believe that just because someone else is doing the same type of content subject doesn't mean that you can't give it your flair. right?
100%.
Or you can't give it your context. And I think all too often people are like, well, someone else is already doing this. Well, what you might not know and what might be misleading is that people are only consuming that because it's the only thing that they can consume. For example, ESPN, for the longest time, was the only kind of company doing sports in a global kind of way. Now, and then there's been other kind of content providers that are trying, but no one has ever really gotten close to them until I think Fox Sports. And I believe that Fox Sports can overtake them as long as they can figure out their website. That's, I think, their biggest flaw at this point. But then if you really think about it, Barstool Sports and some of the other content that they produce as well is literally the same premise and the same stuff as ESPN or Fox News or Fox Sports, but instead it's using their flair or their unique interpretation of it in a fun way with the audience that normally had to gravitate towards the stuff that they weren't excited about, but was looking for something. And so if you're listening to this, if you're watching this and wondering like, wow, I never thought of it that way. I always just thought I couldn't get my stuff out there because someone else has figured it out. There's likely people out there that don't want to consume that, but have to consume it because they love the sport, they love the topic, they love the industry, but they haven't been able to find a place that really hits home.
Right. You know what? I have 2 points to add to that, by
Sure.
the way, which you're speaking to me in more ways than not, because this is something that I've actually talked to people about. When you're producing content, Bob Proctor said this a while back. He says, each one of you is different. You are the added value. You yourself are the added value. You yourself doing your own show, doing your own podcast, you're the added value. You bring something to the table that Mike Murphy can't bring to the table, or, I bring something to the table that you can't bring to the table, something like that. So that's what Barstool Sports did. And that's what everyone should realize. And I don't think people realize that enough, is when they start their own blog or their own podcast and they get discouraged because not a lot of people are listening. Well, just keep on producing content. Your added value will show at some point, and don't try to be like other people. You can cherry pick and grab things from other people, but add your own flair. And it's funny you mentioned SportsCenter and ESPN and they're actually trying to catch up with Barstool. I don't know. Do you see their Snapchat stories where they're, filling people in, and
I'm too old for Snapchat. I got on it for a little bit and I was like, you know what? This isn't for me.
SportsCenter has these like anchors that are supposed to be millennials, I guess, doing funny takes on ESPN highlights. And it's cringe. I cringe every time because they're like trying to curse. It's so forced and it's so unauthentic and it's so ingenuine. And I'm just like, stop trying to be Barstool. Be SportsCenter. Go back to John Butchercross. Go back to the guys that made SportsCenter fun for you guys. The Brian Kennys, the Stuart Scotts from back in the day. All of those guys made SportsCenter fun and enjoyable. These guys are just trying to play catch up with Barstool. And I think that's what's really setting them back, is not only are they trying to, trying to, catch up to Barstool, but they're trying to be Barstool themselves. And I think that's just that's going to put them even deeper in the hole that they are in. So that's my thoughts on that. I've wanted to tell people that for a while now, and now I have a platform to tell you and plenty of other people that it's so cringeworthy.
It is. And so I haven't seen it, obviously, because I'm not on Snapchat. And here's what I would say, too. There are things that you can use as a template, right? If you start a podcast, there are things that you're going to have to do that everyone is going to have to do. But there is nothing unique about those things either. You're going to have to get a hosting platform. You're going to have to figure out a name. You're going to have to figure out other things, right? You're going to have to get a microphone, a camera maybe, all editing software. Those are all things that basically can be the guide, right? They're interchangeable things that, maybe you get this host, maybe you get that host, whatever. It doesn't matter. But the content that you get out there is what's different. And so I do believe that a lot of people play the copycat game. I do believe that people are like, well, this isn't what I was taught. And so when I teach people certain things, I'm like, this is what I've learned, or I've seen with the companies I've worked with that they do. These are real life things. This isn't what your business school is teaching you. Because to me, you can't be seen if you're following what the business school is telling you to do in most cases, right? I'm sure there's some business schools that actually know what they're doing. But, I mean, how do you stand out? So, did you ever put together like a sizzle reel or anything like that?
You mean like a demo reel?
Yeah.
Like, of all my, like
Yeah.
yeah, I put together a demo reel and stuff like that.
And so, when I worked in TV, like for real, not like I'm hosting this TV show, because I wouldn't say that I'm working on TV. I put together a demo reel, sizzle reel, but you have to be unique for people to see it, because if the people that are watching it see the exact same thing as everyone else, hello, how are you? Like me in that suit to start the video that I learned you about, like that is what every video looks like. And I was like, so when I was producing this, and I'm proud of myself for this because I don't always get to be creative in that respect, I was like, I want to be so freaking boring, monotone, and just like a tool that people will be like, and first of all, they'll not expect to see me in a suit. So then I've been like, being like, oh yeah, look, this is me in a suit. And then I go, ha, gotcha. And we put that spin on it. And I was going to edit this video, but I actually hired someone to do it because I was like, you know what? This person is better than me at this, and he will make this better. So I hired him to do it. And I'm glad that I did, because that video has been seen by tens of thousands of people now, which is great. And people are either going to love me or hate me. And I don't really care if they hate me. I don't really,
as long as they see it.
Well, that's what marketing is, right? You have to get someone to stand up. You have to get someone to look up. And so all these people are, and this is something that I really want to do a deep dive on with you, is how do you actually get them to look up from the TV, from their second screen, from their Netflix that they're watching, or whatever? Because to me, your content doesn't matter if you can't get that person to see you that first time.
Right.
And so most people, like right now, you can't see it, but I have another screen here. It happens to be off, but I have this. I'll have a phone. I might have an iPad, right? I might actually, pen and paper is content too, right? Like there's all this content out there. How do you get people to look up though? How do you get people to finally start seeing you?
I think it's a call sometimes, and it's different ways too. And you know this obviously as well. It's either a call to action, or it's something that, I like to say, like, makes the hairs on the back of your spine stand up. Maybe it's something like that, or maybe it's something that you weren't expecting, something that comes out of nowhere. See, you in that suit, I'm thinking, and you're a great example, is that you in that suit, I'm thinking, great, here's another business guy who has a suit on. What did trip me up is that you had a black shirt underneath the suit, and I'm like, usually people don't do that. Usually people who wear suits are not wearing that black shirt underneath, and it looks really bad. I was at an event, this past weekend. A kid was wearing the black shirt underneath. I'm like, dude, you can't do that. You can't be doing that. It doesn't look good right now. So that tipped me off a little bit. But then the second part where you say, forget the suit, take it off, rip it off and whatnot. That's what grabbed my attention. I think something that's out of the ordinary, something that doesn't work, something that people aren't expecting, is what gets people's attention. I think that's what with Success Series. I think the call to action and the out of the ordinariness of, Ricky Fowler teaching you one-on-one in virtual reality is something that gets people to say, whoa, wait, hold on, stop what I'm doing. I can get taught by Ricky Fowler, or I can get taught by, someone in the NBA one-on-one through virtual reality, and it only cost me $5 to $7. Are you kidding me? Like, sign me up. That's the sort of thing that will make you stand apart. And it's a case-by-case basis too, but I think when you start to, consume a bunch of people doing that, you start to, conjure up ideas yourself.
Very cool. So you guys are using a piece of technology basically that is still not well adopted, I guess, and it's still pretty early. How do you as a business, or as you're talking to people, kind of describe that, this isn't all there yet, or that this industry hasn't figured out yet, but we have, and we have figured out how to teach you in ways that other people aren't, because I think there's a risk factor there.
There definitely is, and you're absolutely right. I think and virtual reality hasn't caught up. I mean, you can view virtual reality very well on the Android. Like if you have an Android phone and you slip your Android phone into your virtual reality goggles, the technology is caught up for Android phones. It's not caught up for iOS. So that kind of sets us back a little bit, because everyone and their mother has an iPhone. But what we're doing right now is we're getting people immersed in the content. So that's why we want to stream our content on Lenovo and different platforms, so that people know that, hey, Success Series is out there. And once they're roped into the content, once they're roped into the fact that they can get taught by Ricky Fowler, we say, hey, listen, by the way, if you want to get this experience and even more, a more immersive experience, go ahead and download our virtual reality lessons, and you can really get the full lesson, the full feeling of Ricky teaching you. And I think that's one of the things that will drive our company to the top, because we're already 2 steps ahead of the game in terms of virtual reality. Once people start to get involved with virtual reality, once virtual reality starts to take off, that's when we'll be a step ahead of the game, and then people will come to us first for virtual reality coaching.
Very cool. What's something about you most people don't know about?
That's tough. I'm pretty open about what I do all the time. I would have to say just the whole like bullying thing that I discussed earlier, how I have a chip on my shoulder from that, and how it kind of drives me too. I think that's something that a lot of people don't know. I don't usually tell a lot of people about that stuff. I usually keep that to myself. But now that I'm out of school, and now that I'm seeing some success out of school, and on the trying to build myself as a brand, I think that it's important now to tell people and get that message out to people who might have been put down and might have been bullied in school, to, hey, listen, you can look to me as somebody who can inspire you to rise up from these adversities that you experience in your life. And I think that's something that sets me apart, and that's something that I've waited to tell people for a while, and now it's time to let people know.
It's powerful. So you at the same time are building a personal brand on top of the brand and with the Success Series?
I would say so, yeah. I mean, I think what I want to do, and this is well down the road, is I want to do something similar to what Gary Vee does, and that's build my Success Series brand, build the brands underneath that, but then also at the same time produce content about my life at the same time, and kind of show people this is a pathway to a successful life and a pathway to a successful business. Now, I'm not there yet. I'm not saying I'm there yet. I'm saying that that's the goal, is to come up with this content and hopefully inspire people through successful ventures.
So what you're saying is you would take the Gary Vaynerchuk model of a daily vlog, or by putting content out there around the things that you're doing, not necessarily the exact content that he's doing, but just saying that, hey, these daily videos seem to be something of importance, or these short clips seem to be something that are important. I have this unique tool that I was blessed with and born with that helps me communicate with people. I'm going to talk with people about that.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And I want to make that clear, because I believe that's what you were saying. But again, I don't want people to say, oh, well, Gary Vaynerchuk is doing this thing, so I need to do exactly what Gary Vaynerchuk's doing. That's not what's going to work, because I don't know, he has millions of subscribers, right? A huge following, and if you try and be him, guess what's going to happen? You won't.
No, exactly.
Yeah, very cool.
He's an anomaly too, if you think about it. Even though he curses a lot, I mean, that's what sets him apart. Because a lot of these guys who are public speakers, and a lot of these people who are motivational speakers, they don't curse at all. They're very professional. They're very suit and tie, all that stuff. He's got a beanie on, and he's got K-Swiss shoes on, and he curses his brains out. But that's what sets him apart. He's real with people. He's like the everyman, sort of. And I think that's what brings him down to their level, is that he says, you can look to me as somebody who's had success, and you can see, I came from nothing, but now I'm something, and you can be too. Ricky's the same way too, by the way. He came from the driving range. He wasn't some country club boy a lot of these guys are. He was a driving range kid, and he worked his butt off to get where he is now. Now he's world number 7, and he proves that anyone who has grit and determination can get there.
People worry about that, the cussing too much. Who cares, right? Like, and even the podcasting tools and video things, like, they want you to put, like, was there a cuss word on this? And it's like, I mean, I'm not going to say a cuss word right now just because there's no need to. But, like, it's ridiculous sometimes, because, I mean, people cuss. Like, who cares, right? It's just a word. Like,
it's up to, it's for the viewer to decide, too,
sure,
whether they like it or not, That's the thing, is I don't usually do it myself. I don't want
I
to
don't
do it.
normally do either in stuff
Yeah.
like this, and I'm not faking it. I just there's no. Usually, I do it when I get starting to get passionate. I can feel myself getting riled up right now, so I might start cussing. But like, I was talking to this lady last night who was telling me about something that ticked me off. Not that she was saying something that ticked me off or pissed me off. It was that she had to go through this challenge, and she went with the status quo thing, and she was unsatisfied with the answer. And I was like, I mean, this hurts me that you had to pay money for this thing. Like, that's ridiculous. Of course you had a bad experience because those people are morons, and they're gonna teach you. They're the person in the suit and tie, right? And most people that are doing that, that's a generalization. I shouldn't say this. A lot of people who are providing content to people that are just following others are not getting results because that's exactly what they're doing. They're doing exactly what everyone else has told them, not figuring out their anomaly or not figuring out their unique identifier and pushing that.
And I think a lot of people too, on top of that, they don't want to put in the work. I think a lot of people, and I'm not going to say generalization that, millennials like myself, in my generation are lazy. A lot of them are, a lot of them entitled and spoiled little brats. But just in general, people don't want to go through that process, that trial and error process of learning what ticks for me, what makes me stand out from the guy next to me. Like, you figured that out yourself. I'm slowly figuring that out. And I think that it takes some time to figure out what I do versus what this guy does, what separates me, and what's the added value that I bring. I think people just don't want to go through that process.
It's not just millennials, folks. Millennials can be lazy. Baby boomers can be lazy.
Yeah.
Whatever. Every generation has lazy people, right? And you know who becomes successful in that? The people who aren't lazy, the people that raise their hand, the people that stand out, do something different. And I mean, for years, like I don't go on a lot of vacations, right? I've given up a lot of things to get to the position that I'm in. I don't work 24/7 or anything like that, but there are long nights in these things. There are early mornings in these things. And so you have to figure out ways to do that, and you have to do uncomfortable things to get you to that next step.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said it perfectly right there. Uncomfortable things, putting yourself in situations that you wouldn't be comfortable doing. The first time I started interviewing people, whether it be on the radio or TV or for one of the local newspapers that I worked for, it was uncomfortable. But you have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations to get to the point where you want to get. You can't be on TV if you're afraid of getting in front of a camera or afraid of speaking in front of a large group of people. I think and then people get turned off by that because they're afraid. Do you know public speaking is actually the number one fear before death? People fear speaking in front of other people before they fear death. So the ability to speak in front of people is pretty cool. So I think the fact that so many people are scared of it really sets yourself and myself apart from people, and that's an anomaly in itself.
I have a little different thought on doing things that are uncomfortable. So I don't think, and I know that I started this, I don't think that you should do something that's so uncomfortable that you're going to hate. And what I mean by that is if you literally, like you cringing at watching the Sports Center Snapchats, if you cringe at this thing and you hate it so much, I do not believe that you should do that, because I don't think there's anything in the world that is going to change your mind on that. If you are like terrified to literally pick up that's not a phone, pick up the phone and do a cold call, I don't think you should do that. I think you should find another vehicle to do it. So if you feel comfortable reaching out to someone on Twitter or on Facebook or through an email, and that doesn't scare you as much, I think you should do that, because I don't want people to say, oh, this is all about me being really freaking uncomfortable, right? It is putting yourself in situations that you don't know what the result will be, but I don't think you should put yourself in a situation that will terrify you so much that you cannot fall in love with it.
Yeah, and I think also on top of that, people find out what they do and don't like from situations like that. Like me personally, I was asked to be the public address announcer for the Camden River Sharks. That was my second internship in college, and I was only a PR guy at first. That's what they hired me for. And then they asked me, hey, listen, we just lost one of our public address announcers. We need you to do public address announcing for us for the rest of the season. So I was nervous, but
And now batting third from Washington, D.C., Something like that.
Yeah, so like that sort of thing, like that, I was nervous as hell for that because the thing is, there's so many people in that stadium. There's so many people watching you. One little screw up and people look at you funny, I guess. But that's another thing too. Forget what people think of you. Forget what people say about you. I think that's one thing that people don't. And this is going into a little bit of a rabbit trail here, but that's something that I learned coming out of school and going into school at college was stop caring about what people think of you. And I think you'll go in places you never even dreamed of if you just stop caring about what people think and care more about what you think of yourself and what you think that your path should be. That's the number one thing right there. I think a lot of people don't grasp is that, I don't care what he, she, whatever they think of me. I'm going to do me and I'm going to do it for myself. And I think once people grasp that, then they'll start seeing success.
All right. Many of you guys know that I've worked with thousands and thousands of startups, early stage businesses, and mature businesses. And one of the questions that I get all the time, and I'm getting a lot right now, is I need a website or graphic design work, but I really don't know who to turn to. And here's the answer. Arcphor. ARCPHOR. It's a hard one to spell, so I'll have it in the show notes so you guys can find it. But like me, Arcphor is a company that has worked with hundreds of businesses, entrepreneurs, and startups, and they get it. So many people will say one thing, and they're really just trying to take your money, your hard-earned money, and then you're unhappy. That's not what you're going to get with Arcphor. It's a company that they really do truly get it, and they know how to take care of their clients, and they aren't in the business of just selling you the things that you don't need. They'll tell you, hey, this is not going to be smart. You're going to waste your money, and then you don't have to spend as much money on something like that. So it's a great company, and they are in the business of making you look great, providing you with the tools that you need to generate revenue and sales for the long haul. It's who I trust to manage my websites, and you should too. So if you're looking for graphic design work or web development, Arcphor is the place to turn. Head to Arcphor. I don't want to spell it again, but you guys can find that in the show notes, but arcphor.com, and use Zack, Z-A-C-K, for 10% off. Just mention my name, but you have to spell it right, because if you spell it wrong, you're going to have to pay 10% more.